As we get started talking about organizing materials, the first thing I want to show you is how to create a folder within a course, because folders really are a great way to organize your materials. So once I'm inside my course, the first thing I need to do is hit this Add Materials button. And from here I can see the Add Folders option is the very first one. Now I can give this folder a name. I'm going to go ahead and call this one InDesign since I have some pictures to match. I can change the color of this folder. I can add a description if I would like. So I could just type a sentence here in this rich text editor. The other thing I can do from this page is I can come over to this button and I can insert content. And this is a really nice tool because you can insert all kinds of information. I could insert materials from my OneDrive. You can also sync your Google Drive. So if you had your Google Drive synced here, you would see it off to the side as well. But for today, I'm going to add an image to this folder. And I can upload one, or I can paste the link from the web. And I'm going to do attach file for now. I'm going to put this InDesign one in there. And now you can see it's dropped that picture. And I'm going to add a short description here. Just saying InDesign unit. Okay. If I wanted to add steps, I could say objective 1, 2. So you could let your students know what their learning objectives are here as well. Down here I can have a date for availability. So it's open to students between which times. On the availability part, I can choose whether I want it published, which means that everybody can see it. I can unpublish it. I can have it unpublished, which means that only as a teacher I can see it. So if I'm working on something that's a month from now, I can leave it unpublished so students don't get in there and start playing with things. But I can still see it so that I can add materials to that lesson or to that unit. I could have it published on a start date, so if I knew that I wanted students to start this next week but not see materials ahead of time, I could publish it for that certain date, and I could also have it published during a certain date range. Once I've done that, I'm just going to hit create, and this is what this folder looks like to a student. Now right now, if I click on the folder name, I can come inside this folder and I can see that it's empty. So if I click add materials, I could add more folders inside. I could add assignments, that test quiz function, all these different options I could add inside this folder. So really all I have here is a shell. But for students, especially younger students, having this image here, and I could have resized that so it was smaller, but having that image is going to help them find the right folder or the right topic. If you were talking about elephants, you could have a picture of an elephant here, so younger students knew to click on that folder. For older students, and even some of the younger students, if you had your learning objectives listed here, then you're letting them know what they are supposed to be learning, what they are looking for when they are going through these materials. So that's just a quick way to make a folder. This first method to organize your folders is to have a past folder and a future folder. This past folder, if I click the drop down here, you can see it contains work from the past, so in this example, yesterday's homework. And the future folder is going to be unpublished, so the students wouldn't see this folder at all. Only you could see this folder. Could have tomorrow's bell ringer and tomorrow's homework in it. This method is really nice for students or individuals who get really overwhelmed by seeing too many folders here. The only thing that students would see would be today's current work or the current work you're having them do outside of a folder up here, and then they'd be able to click on the past folder and then see things that they've done in the past. So it really limits the amount that they see in this page or this space. Now if you're using this as a teacher, it's really nice to do this. Let's say that today is over and I want to go ahead and move these. I can just drag and drop. And you want to get this gray box to push over a little bit, but I can drag and drop stuff into the past, and then I can simply take some of these from the future and pull them up and out. And so now I've got my things out here for tomorrow. The next thing that I'm going to want to do, and I'm going to refresh this page just a little bit, but you can see here that they still say unpublished. So the next thing that I'm going to want to do is go ahead and publish these so that students can see them for the next day. But that's that first method, just to use the past and the futures folder and then have your current work outside of a folder. The second method to organizing materials is to organize materials by weeks. Here you can see I still have that future folder and that past folder, and this is going to help keep things clean and organized for students again. That way they're not overwhelmed. But then you can see I have week 2 out here, so I could have all of the materials I'm going to cover in week 2 in this folder. If I wanted to, I could add subfolders to this, so each day could have a different folder. And so I could organize subfolders in that week. I can still have weeks, my future weeks in here, where I can go in as a teacher and I can create my lessons beforehand. And then as students are finished, I can go ahead and put that old week's work in the past folder. Okay. You don't want to take work from the past and hide it, because it's like taking a student's homework again and hiding it so they cannot see it. You wouldn't take a student's old essay that they wrote and say, thanks for turning it in, I'm never going to let you see it again. And it also can hide grades in the gradebook, and we really don't want to hide grades in the gradebook. So I suggest that you make one folder just for past work, and then as things are finished, you can drag and drop those items into that past folder. One downfall to think of when you think of this week's method is, let's say that we were in mid-January and we had 2 or 3 snow days in a row, and you have all of your week's work. Let's say you had the 6-week grading period, so you had all 6 weeks figured out what you were going to do every day. Well, now you've missed 2 or 3 days in week 2, so you have to push that 2 or 3 days of work into week 3, which means you'll have to push 2 or 3 days worth of work into week 4, and so on and so forth. So then that's a lot of work of dragging and dropping things into new weeks for students. So that's a downfall to using that week, organizing by weeks. The third method that is common among secondary teachers is to organize folders by unit. So instead of having that downfall of organizing them by weeks, where if you're off by a couple of days, if you organize by units, you don't have to worry about what day of the week you are on. So here you can see students would currently see Unit 2, and then they'd see that past folder. So in the past, students had already worked on Unit 1. In the future, I have Units 3 and 4 ready to go. And then under Unit 2, or under my current unit, I could create subfolders, and I could either create these subfolders by learning objective, so maybe this is learning objective A, or maybe I want to organize them by days in the unit. So if I had a 10-day unit, I could say day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on. While we are talking about organizing materials, a feature that teachers might really like, especially if you are running a flipped classroom or kind of a mastery learning model, is under options, and it's called student completion rules. And right now I'm on this mock course, and I'm on the course materials homepage. And if I go to student completion rules here, I could add requirements, but it's only going to let me do it for folders. Items have to be in a folder, so these 2 items I couldn't set completion rules for because they're not in a folder. So when we talked about our methods of setting things up, if you want to use completion rules, you don't want to use that first method of setting things up where the current days are outside of the folder. For this example, I'm going to dig deeper into this folder. So now once I'm in this folder, I could start setting completion rules for items inside folders. So once again, I can go up to options and I can click student completion. Now I can choose if these requirements have to be done in a sequential order. So as I add them, students have to complete each of them in a row, or if they just can go through each one and complete each task. For now, I'm going to go ahead and hit this, do them sequentially. And I'm going to add my first requirement. And for this example, I did a reading for day 1. And since it's a PDF file, I'm just going to have them view the file before they can move on. So essentially they would open up the file and read it. For this next step, I'm going to hit the homework day one. So let's say this was a read and response. So I want students to read that PDF, and now I want them to respond in the homework. So before they can move on, I need them to make a submission. Now that they're done with the day one reading and the homework that matches, I want them to answer like an exit ticket question about it. And since this is like a quiz or test function in Schoology, this has the automatic grading part, so I'm going to go ahead and say that they need to score at least an 85 out of 100 to move on. And on this last one, I'm going to say on homework part 2, maybe this is what they need to do at home or on their own later in the day. They need to also make a submission. And once I have all the rules set up that I would like, I can go ahead and hit Save Changes. Once again, I'm going to bring your attention back up to this item, because I can uncheck this and then students could do any of these in whatever order they choose. But if I have that check mark, they have to do this before this assignment is even available to them. Okay. As a teacher now, you have to have students in your course first, but now you see this new bar pop up that says student progress. And so I can click here and I can see each student's name would be listed, and I can see how much progress they have made. If a student has told me that they are done with an item and it hasn't showed up yet, I can always click the Recheck Student Progress board. This is also the view that students would see, and so they can see what rules they have to meet. So they would know that on this first one they must at least view the item, and they would know on this exit ticket that they must score at least an 85% or 85 points to move on. And as they meet these requirements, each one of these little check marks is going to turn green, letting them know that they've completed that step. Once again, this is a great way to use these student completion rules in Mastery Learning or Flipped Classroom, where you have students maybe view the video, and then you have them maybe do questions about the video to check for understanding before they move on to doing homework.